Well, I'm here today on a fine Saturday in April with a group called The Dozen from the grade class of 1972. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I do know one of their classmates who's not able to be here today for this interview. A.B. Coleman and I actually met after graduation in 1972 when I was just wet behind the ears, sophomore in high school going into my junior year. And he came up on a street in the south side of Chicago with a top-down Corvette, white interior, orange, decked out in a uniform that looked like he was all-world, had his newly minted aviator wings from Pensacola, and the rest was history. Had it not been for A.B. Coleman, I wouldn't be at the Naval Academy today. So I want to thank all of you who are here today on behalf of the class of 72 and the impact you had on those of us who are younger than you. Whether you knew it or not, indirectly, you represented a symbol of opportunity at the time that gave a lot of us around the country a sense that we too could apply to the Academy and try to make it a reality. So it's great to be with you here today, and I welcome you back. You're here for your 40th reunion. Y'all don't look like you've been out 40 years. Now I'm saying that for my audience, but I also have a number of them who could probably take me out in a minute, so I'm also being politically correct, but it's great to have you back for your 40th. This is a bit of history. To have you here for your 40th reunion here in 2012 in April is a bit of history. So I'd like to let the alumni know who each of you are, where you're from. You know, the Academy is about people coming from all over the country and with different stories. So if you could share with our alumni who you are, how you ended up at the Academy back in, I guess it would have been the summer of '68. Which was a time of interesting social dynamics in our country and a lot of different change going on. And what brought you here? I think that'd be a good way to start. So if we can just start the conversation and let people know who you are.
I'm Jay McMillan. I grew up on the south side of Chicago and really didn't even know that the Naval Academy was a school to go to until some blue and gold officers came to the school to recruit. And they spoke to the top 10 students of the class. And I basically followed up from there and received a congressional appointment from Senator Charles Percy at the time. And the rest has been history. But having survived that experience of Chicago, I felt that I could handle pretty much anything. And my first day at the Academy was somewhat of a rude awakening. And that night, I called my mother and told her I was ready to come back home. So she said, "We'll give it a couple more weeks, and if you still don't like it, you can come on home." So 4 years later, I graduated, but it was more of a bond that I had formed with my brothers sitting here at the table that really strengthened my resolve to see it through. That, these guys, and also the upperclassmen that had preceded myself, that gave me the wherewithal and the initiative and motivation to really push through. That was not without some academic failures and celebrations, but you know, the whole Academy experience was one that I wouldn't trade for the world, but at the same time I wouldn't want to do it again. I went on after graduation to join the Marine Corps and flew helicopters and had a blast doing that. But most importantly, again, it's the bond that I have with my brothers here and the brothers who aren't here that has really established who I am personally and professionally.
Sir.
My name is Ed Burnett. I come from the west side of Chicago, and decided at the age of 17 that I wanted to go into the Marine Corps. And that wasn't very popular in my family because of Vietnam. Somebody in my junior year said, well, if you're going into the Marine Corps, why don't you consider the Naval Academy? And my question was, what's that? I had heard of Army Navy, but it never occurred to me that there was a Naval Academy. And they said, well, you can go to the Naval Academy, you can go into the Marine Corps afterwards as an officer. And the individual who talked to me about that, his son actually went through the academy in our class. His last name was Bailey. His father's name was William. I don't remember what his name, first name was. And I was recruited because I played football. So I came, I guess the fall before we started, and got on my first airplane and visited the academy. And they made a big deal of introducing those of us who came to Anthony Watson, who was also from Chicago. Met him. He was much friendlier then than when I got to the academy, because he was an upper class, and kind of gave me a hard time when I got there, but turned out to be a good friend. I also called home after the the first day at the academy. I called home and told my mother that it was a good chance that I'd be coming back. And we had some heated discussions because she didn't want me to go there in the first place. She said, son, we've been through discussions about the academy for a long time. I think your reasons for going there were sound. I think your commitment is laudable. She says, but we don't quit. We finish what we start. And she says, I expect you to do the same thing. After that, there was never any doubt that I would do whatever I needed to do to graduate from the United States Naval Academy. But just there, like everything else in life, everything I have received. There's a lot of people, but for those folks, I don't get through the academy. Not the least of those are the individuals sitting at this table and those who I wish were here.
Thank you. Nelson?
I'm Nelson Jones, and I'm from Houston, Texas. No side, no east or west, or anything. Just Houston. But I got here from Houston. For me, the context of where the country was was really significant. It was 1968. Vietnam was raging. The civil rights movement was at its height. Dr. King had been killed in April. We got here in June, so there was a lot of tension in the country for a number of reasons. But my family, we have a history of service. There are lots of older cousins, all my uncles, 6 or 7 of them had all been in service, and most in the Navy. But I was advised, if you're going to be a citizen in this country, you got to serve. And the draft was going. I knew I had to go, and so I looked around. They said, well, you want to be an officer. So I looked around to see how I could do that and become independent. I saw the Army-Navy game on television. I think I was maybe the 8th or 9th grade, and I thought, well, that might be a good way to become an officer and get a good education, and it would be free and make me independent. And so I got a nomination out of Bob Eckhart, in the 8th District of Texas, and I got here. Now, I can't say that I called my mom and to tell her I was coming home. I know what she would say. She would say, "Oh, you're gonna kill your poor mama." So what I would do, I would go into the shower. I'd get in the shower, turn the shower on, well, nobody could hear me cry. I would just boo-hoo. It was hard. It was a tough thing. The transition from high school to college is one thing. The leaving home, if you leave home, is another challenge. If you join the military, the transition from civilian to the military is a tough thing. But to do all three things at 18 and have that academic challenge, and then have the upper class screaming at you is awesome. And so I admit today that I cried, and I cried a lot in my shower. We were really dispersed in the brigade. They had 36 companies, not a lot of folks, but just to see a friendly face and get a nod. Occasionally we'd be in class together, occasionally we'd be in the PT fields together, just to see that. And then as we moved into the upper classes, we could visit each other's rooms, and I remember Ed and I were in political science together. We took a lot of classes together, and that was significant to have him to study with. And it was the cultural affinity, the ability to discuss certain things that we had in common. And so I would say all of that pressure, that political pressure from the outside, and the academy was a different place. Then we've got a gospel choir now, and we've got the salsa club, we've got all those things. Socially, none of that existed for us. And so we were on our own. We really have been really great friends for, it's 44 years, because we came in 1968 together. So I can't say enough good things about both the academy that brought us together, but in terms of successfully navigating the academy, for me, it's these guys. So I just...
Thank you for that. Wow. Sir?
My name is Gene Lovely. I grew up in Philadelphia, but I went to high school in Paterson, New Jersey. It's very interesting listening to my fellow dozen members go ahead of me, because our stories are a lot alike, yet there are differences. They're different. So we're alike, but we're different. In high school, I decided to go into the Navy my senior year, and into the reserves. And so when I graduated from high school, I went directly into the Navy. I served aboard a ammunition ship out of Norfolk called the Shasta, USS Shasta. And our deployment was into the Gulf of Tonkin. This is during the Vietnam War era, as others have mentioned. And my role aboard ship was as a radioman, so which brought me in direct contact with our captain daily. I would see him to deliver messages to him and to receive messages from him. And sometimes during our visits, he would ask me to sit down. And we talk. And his name was, because he has passed, Captain B.B. Forbes. And Captain Forbes would just ask me, how are things going? What do you want to do when we get back to stateside and so forth? And we had some very good talks. And during one of them, he said, "How would you like to go to the Naval Academy?" And as it was a shock for me, as much as it was a shock for my other dozen members here, because I had never seen a black naval officer, never. So I really couldn't associate with his question. But over time, he continued to ask me, and so I said, okay, let's give it a, what do I need to do? So he told me about this program called Prep School, Naval Academy Prep School. And he told me what I needed to do, and I did, and successfully passed the test that I had to make and so forth. And I entered the Naval Academy. And the Naval Academy was my plebe year was probably a lot easier than for my other members here, because of my prior service, and I had served in Vietnam, so I had ribbons. I had about 6 or 7 ribbons on that I could wear on my uniforms. So the upperclassmen gave me a little more respect than they did for the plebes that came directly from high school. And I remember one incident in particular that really made a difference, which was Captain B.B. Forbes became Admiral Forbes. And he came by the academy one time to see me, to see how I was doing. So he came on my floor in uniform with all his ribbons and all his gold showing and so forth, and he asked for me. And that made all the difference in the world. After that, nobody bothered me. I was like the man aboard on that floor. That was it. But it was the academy was it's difficult in other ways. One thing that also made a difference for me was one of the members of the class of '70 that was black. His name was Mike Roberts, and he had led the way for me. And he was a support for me while I was there. So in addition to him being a support for me, Mike Roberts, class of '70, had the other dozen members that I could talk to, and also the black workers at the academy. You know, it was the days where, you know, all the people that cleaned the toilets and cut your hair and did all the repairs, they were black. And they were very supportive. You know, every time I see one, they say, "Go, brother, go, go." You know, they give us that chunk.